Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going behind the scenes, really, of a massive ongoing world tour by a global superstar. We're looking beyond just the huge spectacle, digging into what our source material tells us about the personal journey and even the public stances connected to it all.
Exactly. And the source we're using today is this great article. It gives us some pretty rare backstage access, shares interview bits, and lays out the key facts about the tour and, well, the artist herself.
Yeah, so our mission here is to unpack all those insights for you, get a feel for the sheer size and complexity of putting something like this on.
Right.
And maybe more importantly, explore what the article shares about her recent experiences, her perspectives. So let's start with just the scale of this thing.
Okay, yeah. The article right off the bat calls it the biggest stadium tour of the year. I mean, think about this. 64 sold-out shows across North and South America.
Wow.
Reaching over 2 million fans. And the ticket sales. The source puts it at over $150 million. It's huge.
Those numbers are just mind-boggling. But what I found fascinating in the source is that glimpse backstage. You'd maybe expect total chaos before a show this big.
Yeah, you would.
But the article paints a picture of things being remarkably calm and professional. You know, dancers stretching, people sewing crystals onto costumes, guitar techs checking tuning. It sounds almost, well, serene.
It really speaks to the organization, doesn't it? And the article throws in these practical details that kind of stick with you. Like the tour travels with its own 2 washing machines and tumble dryers.
2 washing machines, really?
Yep, because they've got around 300 costumes and they need refreshing every day. The head of wardrobe is quoted saying it's because they all dance really hard, the outfits just get soaked.
Daily laundry for 300 costumes on the road. That's a whole logistical operation in itself.
Totally. The article even mentions the male dancers' shoes have to be repainted every single morning because the choreography just scuffs them up that badly.
See, it's those little details from the source that really drive home the complexity.
Right. Exactly. And it also takes us beneath the stage into what they call the underworld. Apparently not the most glamorous place, can be hot, wet, depending on the venue.
But crucial, I imagine.
Totally crucial. That's where all the big sets are stashed, ready to be lifted up by elevators during the show.
Okay.
The article mentions seeing specific things down there, like her shoes already set out on a crystal-studded staircase for a quick change. It just shows you this whole hidden sort of industrial layer supporting the magic upstairs.
So this massive, complex machine is running things behind the scenes. What about the artist at the center of it all? What does the source say about her arrival, her process?
Well, it describes her usually getting there quite late in the day, maybe around 3 p.m., sometimes with a police escort. And she heads straight to the stage, joins the team, assesses the venue.
Right.
And apparently she can't help but start dancing while she's doing it, just feeling the space.
There's a fun bit in the article about soundcheck, too, where she jokes about sounding like Beyoncé.
Yeah, with a wink, it says. But then it adds, or is it a joke?
So what's the implication there, according to the source?
It basically confirms what everyone working there seems to know. The boss is a perfectionist. The article quotes her chief dancer, Darina Littleton, saying, when she's on, she's ready, her character's on, she's full out. No half measures.
And her musical director, Tim Mitchell, who's been with her since the 90s, even wrote that famous panpipe part on Whenever, Wherever.
Iconic riff.
Totally. What does he say about her perfectionism?
He really emphasizes it. He's quoted saying she's very particular about every aspect of the show, sound, visual, lighting, the wristbands, every single thing. He even adds something like, it's incredible, I don't know how she does it.
So the source really uses those voices to show that the polish you see on stage comes directly from her intense focus.
Absolutely. That perfectionism clearly drives the whole thing.
Which obviously translates into the performance itself. How does the article describe the actual show?
It calls it a 2.5-hour show, describes it as an intense physical workout, and basically a non-stop parade of hits, plus 13 costume changes and constant movement.
13 changes.
Yeah.
And the article highlights some specific performance moments, right? To give a flavor of that intensity.
Yeah, it does. It mentions, let's see, a Lebanese-inspired belly dance during Ojos Ashi, this tribal knife routine before whenever, wherever.
Okay.
There's a bit where she's apparently thrashing a flying V guitar during Objection, tango, and it really raves about an electrifying version of She-Wolf.
Wow.
Oh, and the show ends with this giant statue of a she-wolf that she's apparently named Isabel. So it's not just singing songs, it's described as very physical, very visual.
Given how intense that sounds, what does the article say about the physical toll? How does she manage?
It points out that doing a show this big, night after night, means performing no matter if you're sad or if you had a bad day or if you're sick.
Right, the show must go on.
Exactly. But she shares an interesting take on it in the source. She says the adrenaline actually doesn't let me feel the exhaustion, claiming it sort of carries you through.
Huh. Like the energy itself becomes fuel. Now, the tour's title, Las Mujeres Ya No Lloran, Women No Longer Cry. That obviously points to something deeper, more personal driving this. What does the article tell us about that?
The source is very clear on this. It says the title was inspired by intense heartbreak and personal upheaval. And it goes into the specific challenges she was facing when this music came about.
And the article doesn't shy away from those specifics, does it?
No, it lists them out. Her very public split after 11 years with Gerard Piqué, her father needing emergency brain surgery, and also settling that huge $14.5 million tax fraud case. It paints a picture of a really turbulent time.
A lot to deal with all at once. And how does the article say she kind of frames this on stage for the audience?
Well, she apparently talks about difficulties, telling the crowd something like, a fall isn't the end, but the beginning of an even better journey. And the article really stresses that this whole period of turmoil, especially after like 7 years of musical silence from her, it just prompted this huge creative outburst.
And that's where these new songs, the ones featured heavily in the tour, came from. The article mentions specific tracks linked directly to that period.
Exactly. It highlights songs like the Beezer Music Sessions Vol 53, which won Latin Grammy Song of the Year. The article calls it Full of Barbs, aimed at Piqué and his new partner.
Right.
It even quotes that really specific line, "You traded Rolex for a Casio," as an example of how direct it is.
Yeah, that got a lot of attention.
For sure. It also mentions Te Felicito, describing it as sarcastic, and TQG, that massive duet with Carol G, the source notes. It's hit like 1.3 billion Spotify streams. So these songs are presented as a direct, powerful response to her life.
You can totally see why fans connect so strongly with that. There's a fan quote in the piece that really sums it up.
Yeah, the fan just says she's so inspiring to women and adds, she's done it all. She is power. It really captures how people see her turning this very public pain into something strong, something empowering.
So it's deeply personal, turning heartbreak into art. But the article then shifts gears a bit, focusing on another really important part of her story and her platform.
Right. It talks about her own experience as an immigrant, moving to the U.S. when she was, 19? To try and break into the Western market. She was already a big star in Colombia, but needed to learn English.
And the way she learned English for songwriting specifically is quite interesting, according to the source.
Yeah, she talks about surrounding herself with actual physical dictionaries, Spanish-English synonym dictionaries. She calls it very precarious compared to now with Google and everything.
Right, pre-internet struggles.
Totally. And she got deep into poetry, reading people like Leonard Cohen, Walt Whitman, Bob Dylan, to really grasp how language works in songs.
And the article points out that more recently, she's been thinking about her own acceptance in America back then versus maybe some of the current attitudes towards immigrants. And she's been quite vocal about it.
Very vocal. The article mentions her dedication at the Grammys earlier this year, speaking directly to all my immigrant brothers and sisters in this country, saying, you are loved, you are worth it, and I will always fight with you.
And the interview parts in the source, they reveal how she feels about the immigrant experience in the U.S. right now.
Yeah, she describes it as people living in constant fear and calls the current situation painful to see.
And according to the article, she uses her tour platform to make a specific call to action.
She does. She says, now more than ever, we have to remain united. Now more than ever, we have to raise our voices, making it clear that while policies can change, the treatment of all people must always be humane. And the article notes she delivered part of this in Spanish, directly addressing her Latin American fans.
So it's clear this tour is about way more than just the music. It's tangled up with her personal life, with public advocacy, and right at the core of it all, the article suggests, is that connection with the fans and with her family.
Yeah, the source talks about how fans have literally grown up alongside her music, how they see themselves reflected in her. It describes watching mothers and daughters in Miami singing along to her 90s hits together, then bouncing to the new stuff. Real generational connection.
And the emotional high point of the show, according to the article, seems to be this one song, Acrostico. the ballad for her kids.
Yes. And as she sings it, her sons, Sasha and Milan, they appear on the big screens, actually duetting with her.
Wow. How does she handle that moment on stage? What does the source say?
It says she gets visibly emotional. She's quoted saying, "My heart melts every time I see them on that screen and I hear their little voices. She calls them everything to me. They're my engine and the reason why I'm alive." It sounds like a very raw, very real moment.
And this is apparently the first time her sons are really old enough to kind of grasp her doing these huge shows. What's their take on it, according to the article?
It says they have mixed emotions. They apparently get stressed out, wanting it all to be perfect for her. And they worry afterwards, asking her things like, "Mom, how did it go? Did you fall? Are you okay?"
Oh. So even with this massive global production, you still have that very human, relatable parent-child dynamic happening.
Exactly. And it sounds like she uses it as a bit of a teaching moment, too.
Oh, yeah.
She tells them, according to the source, there's no perfect show. It's okay to make a mistake. Which is probably a lesson learned from decades of performing under that intense pressure herself, now passing it on.
That makes sense. Finally, the article gives just a little hint about what might come after this current leg of the tour wraps up.
Yeah, just a tease, really. It quotes her mentioning potential UK and Europe dates, telling fans to stay tuned, wait and see, saying she's close to announcing. She wants to share the show with fans from all over the world, basically.
Okay, so maybe more to come. So wrapping this up, what we've really seen through this source is this picture of an artist operating on an almost unbelievable scale, driven by this incredible perfectionism, but also channeling really deep personal pain into art that empowers people. And using her massive platform to speak out on important issues like immigration while keeping that core connection to her family and her fans.
Yeah, this look behind the curtain that the source provides, it really hammers home that being this kind of global star isn't just about singing and dancing. It's managing a huge business, navigating really tough personal stuff, crafting a public image, and doing advocacy, often all at the same time under immense scrutiny.
Right. So maybe something for you listening to think about is how that incredibly complex reality, juggling the business, the personal life, the public persona, the advocacy, how does all that inevitably shape not just the art itself, but also the connection that artist builds with the world? It's clearly a powerful mix, fueling both the performance and that deep fan relationship.